everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Client Horror Stories. And I'm excited to hear what's I'm sure is going to be a fun and crazy story from my new friend, Anthony Highman. Great to have you here, Anthony.
Thank you, Morgan. Excited to be here. Let's talk about client.
Yeah, let's jump right in. I love jumping into the stories, and many of us. Let's go.
Awesome. Okay, so I have a lot of client horror stories. This one is going to be about a local law firm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is like sort of in the early days of SMB team, which is the company I work for. This is like, again, way early, I think first year, and we had to like really work hard to get this client's business. So me and Bill, CEO of SMB team.
I just want to interrupt with a thought. I hadn't realized it until you said it now, but it could be that working really, really hard to get a particular client could be a risk factor. Something I've seen. It was. Because I've seen this pattern also, where the people that are so picky and want a zillion meetings, all this before you start, it's part of the psychology where their expectations on everything are just so unrealistic. So knowing nothing about your story, other than it was hard to get them, I'm already seeing yellow.
Yeah, totally. That I have some red flags in this story I'll point out, but yeah, it's tough though, right? Because it's such a mixed bag of opportunities that you get. I've also had awful experiences with people who just sign up on the first call. Do you know what I mean? Where you don't have. So really, it's like a coin flip. I never know, is this person going to be a good client or a bad client? But this one, yes, we did have to work for. It's a couple calls, and then me and Bill went out to their office in person on a Saturday. All suited and booted, ready to go, ready to impress. Walked up, and they were like moving their office around. It was a bizarre situation. We ended up like helping them move. So we were like moving computers for them in our suits. Like this is how the experience started, right? So had a couple calls, talked to them kind of about their needs, did it in person, ended up moving their office around. So that's fine. You know, I'm a humble guy. I'll do whatever. And, you know, we were trying to get their business. So this is kind of the intro. So we sit down in this office with one of the main partners, talking about what we can do, all the cool kind of targeting stuff and, you know, the technical details. I don't think they had done Google Ads, right? And we're sitting down in the office with one of the main partners. The other main partner comes in. We met him briefly, and it's a kind of like an odd introduction. Got like a weird vibe from him. And then we keep going back to this meeting. In the meeting, we're talking about like Google My Business, all the, you know, normal stuff you talk about. Yes. And he told us that their Google My Business got shut down because they were giving gift cards to like paralegals and secretaries to get Google My Business reviews. And the secretaries were just making them up to get this money for Google My Business reviews. So second red flag, right, is, okay, their Google My Business is shut down for incentivizing employees to give fake Google My Business reviews. But again, back to, this is year one of us in the business.
And also that behavior could be maliciousness, but it could also be cluelessness.
Exactly. So we did not know, right? And we're just trying to get this client. We have, I would say, probably like 30 clients at the time, but we're really trying to grow, and every client matters, right? So end up staying in his office probably for like 2 hours, just talking about digital marketing, the business,
moving computers,
like that. Yeah, moving computers. We leave, say goodbye, and then he becomes a client, I think, a couple of days later, right? So everything starts out fabulous. We're bringing in like a ton of leads to the firm. They're all becoming cases. It's just really going great, right? And I love that kind of a experience where
Yes.
Everything kind of just works, right? We set it up and turn it on, and leads are just coming in and they're signing up cases. That's literally the perfect experience, right? He's happy.
This is right, client bar stories, so it's probably too good to be true.
No, I know. It's coming. And so, then there's that kind of building trust and communication part, right? Which is, this is back when I'm like just an account manager. I'm managing this account, and I'm talking to him probably weekly in the beginning, right? Having like a weekly call, check in. He's telling me new ideas. We're kind of just chatting about results so far. Everything's going good. So about like a month in, things are.
I like how you timed your drink, like just as the excitement is building. A month in, pause. I need a drink.
About a month in, he becomes like a little bit less responsive than he had been in the beginning. But I don't think like anything's weird at this point. Then out of the blue, like the other partner, the one that we had met briefly and got kind of like a weird vibe from, calls and says, "Shut everything down." And I'm like, I'm not communicating with this other partner. It's just me and the one partner, right?
So it's like out of the blue.
Weird, out of the blue, shut everything down. So I'm like, okay, like, hey, I'm not sure what's going on. Let me talk to other guy, right? Mm-hmm. To like get confirmation, because he's the one that like signed all the papers. He's our client, right? So I can't get in touch with him. Again, like everything had been going awesome. They've been signing up like upwards of 20 cases like I think in every 2 weeks, which is like crazy on the ad spend that they had too. And so I can't get in touch with the main guy. The other guy tells us turn everything off. I'm trying to like talk to the guy who reached out, get more information. I look up online the law firm's name, and suddenly it's changed.
What?
From the initials that were what we started with in the beginning, let's say like L-A and A or something, right? I'm just going to make something up here. Then I look up the web or the law firm after this guy calls in, and it's like L, B, and C. And I'm like, what? So the guy, our client, isn't on the website anymore. And I'm like, what the F is going on? I can't get in touch with him. His phone's been turned off. He's not on the website. And he had just been fired. So it turns out that that was like his last ditch effort, was hiring us to bring in the numbers that he was supposed to hit, and he was hitting them, right? He was hitting the numbers
because of you.
So like, and so like the other partners had, I guess, given this guy an ultimatum. Hey, we have to let you go unless you hit these unrealistic numbers that nobody can hit. And we were getting him there.
That's
and then they went, shut it all down. Because really, they were just trying to get rid of this guy. So it was an interesting, a very interesting client experience. And I know that's not going to take up an hour here, so I have other ones.
Ooh, by the way, I say we jump into another story, but before that, the story is short but sweet. I really like it. I want for all the younger listeners, I was telling you before, in the target market is a younger version of ourselves. I think there are a few interesting lessons that come from here. One of them is it's important to understand your client's objectives. So like, even if he tells you, oh, the objective is to get more clients, he really had another objective. Oh yeah, to not get fired. And so it's important to dig under to figure out what's happening. They'll give you one objective, but there's usually a secret other one. And often you have to build up a relationship or friendship before they're like a trust, before they're willing to tell you, okay, really, this is my last ditch effort. And I think a second lesson from the story, yeah, I'll go in a second. I just want to say before I forget it, is it's important to know not just the person that hired you, but the decision maker behind him as well. Because if you had a relationship with that other person, then you could have potentially they could have been like, oh, we want to fire this guy anyway, but you're doing a great job. So that could have happened anyway. Right.
Oh, and on that, right, because I had kind of like deferred to the guy who'd hired us, we couldn't stay on with the firm, right? Because he was like, oh, you sided with that guy, right? In that exchange. And if I had played that like a different way and tried to get more of the story from the other decision maker, it could have like remained a client. And it didn't matter how good the results were. It was like trust was lost with I went towards this guy rather than listening to what the other decision maker was.
Yeah. So I think another lesson related to that is that it's inevitable that you play politics in any organization.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it is all about trust. Like that, again, like I had said this to you earlier, looking back on all the client relationships, that is the biggest factor is trust in kind of an industry where trust is so important and unclear, right? Like I think one of the biggest things is every marketing agency out there says we can do this, we can do that, we can get you a 1,200% ROI, right? And like clients don't know what to believe or really like how programs work. So it's hard to gain that trust in a very untrustworthy industry where you can make anything look like anything.
I agree. And it's building up trust among multiple people in the organization.
Right. All right. So I'll jump into another one.
Let's do it. Love it.
Again, early days. And this one was, so when we had started, it wasn't just legal. Like legal was my experience mainly. But when we had started, it was kind of open to home services, finance, healthcare a little bit, and legal, right? The majority was legal, but we had like a little bit of sprinkling of all the other clients. So this one is a home services client, like roofing, kind of contracting, all that kind of stuff, right? So this one, again, early days, doing what needed to be done. This was a client where I had to drive out to another state once a month to do like an in-person reporting session with them, which we were doing again in the early days, but have kind of discontinued that. And this guy was like a really intimidating dude, just like a big dude, kind of like mean and intimidating. So like, that's how I started this relationship. And backstory is he had already been through, he had already had like another person in the organization who had been let go. So this was like a transition. I was coming into this, transitioning from the last account manager, which is always a turbulent experience, right? Like when you're doing a transition, always a weird kind of.
Transitions are always turbulent. And I would add to that if there have been some clients I've had where I discover later, it's not just they fired the guy before me, they fired like 8 people in a row over 8 months or something, because sometimes when there's too many problems, the problem is not the people you're hiring, but you.
And so we had let somebody go. So like had a different account manager at the SMB team
Oh, sorry, I
Okay.
misunderstood.
No, totally cool. So again, it was like an internal transition on our
Got
end.
it. Got it. Yeah, which is
This
still
guy had
for
been
fun.
going
Got
out
it. Got it.
to him, and we'd been working with this client, I think, for over a year, right? Everything's going
Got
pretty good. I come in, and this is like a really, really great lesson, Morgan. I come in and backtracking. Sorry. He had gone through 2 transitions at S&B team. So
Which maybe my point that I just said actually does apply, but from his eyes.
100%.
He's like,
And
what's up with these
great-
FMB guys? They keep on changing my account and they can't hold on to them for
Right.
years.
And this is a great lesson. So yeah, he had gone through 2 people. There was a guy named Jason and a guy named Scott that worked for us. And whoops, I said their names.
It's fine.
Cut those out. A guy named account manager A and account manager B, who had worked with this guy prior to me working with him, who we had let go. So I'm the 3rd person in. I drive out to meet this guy again, very intimidating, type A personality in roofing. And I'm the 3rd guy he's dealing with. And I go, we got to do everything differently. And the tricky part here is also the last guy had said that, right? So it was, but this is the reality, right? Things change very quickly in digital marketing. So
totally.
it was all manual, kind of, with like testing out automations with the first guy. Then the second guy was all automations with broad match. And then I come in and my experience is mostly legal, and I'm going no broad match, no automation, back to manual, right? But this guy's been through 3 people. So his main pain point was, this guy says I got to do it this way. Next guy says, no, you're doing it all wrong. Now you're saying that guy was doing it all wrong, right? So I can see it from his point of view, like everybody's saying something different. Not a good experience from a client side, right? So like huge lesson there. Anyway, I think I'm doing the right thing.
So let's pause and just talk about that lesson, because I think it's a really good lesson for younger agency owners or managers, which is constantly changing on your side gives the impression that it's not just that you don't know what you're doing, but that there's no process. And clients want to hire you for the process. So an ideal universe is, even when the people change, the process stays the same. The reality is every account executive or account manager has a different style and different preferences and different experiences. And reconciling those with a consistent process for the client is one of the core challenges.
Oh, 100%. And this is like a huge turning point in the organization, because he had said this perfectly. He summed it up. He said, this guy did it this way, this guy did it another way. There's no SMB team way, right?
Yes.
And it was a light bulb for us. We said, okay, there's got to be an SMB team way. And we lost this client, right? So huge learning experience was the process needs to be consistent across the board, because you can't have guy A doing it one way, guy B doing it another way, and then guy C doing it a completely different way. It's the optics, right? There's always going to be changes, but it's the optics that there is a process that we follow across the board. So huge, painful lesson, but like extremely important in our growth of an organization.
By the way, it's a great lesson. I would take that lesson a step further, and I would even incorporate this lesson into your marketing. Said differently. Why do people hire you or anyone? And even outside of digital marketing, I think the reason why people are hired is, oh, you've done this before, so you can do this again. Look at your great result. Why are case studies great? You've done this. You can do the same. You can do the same for me. And if you've done this before, what is the proof that you can do it again? Process. Because if you don't have a process, you did it successfully previously, either through luck or randomness. It's only process that lets you recreate, which is why I think marketing process is very powerful.
100%. Totally agree with that. So we, I'm the third guy in, telling him we got to do it this new way. And he's open to, my suggestions because I do have a lot of understanding of the ecosphere of digital marketing.
Right.
I think like it's really important as a digital marketer to not be 100% zoomed into the programs that you're working in, but also know what's going on the periphery. Like there's a lot that changes from legislation, and I call it big tech chess moves, basically. Like what are the big companies doing? Like where are they moving their pieces, and what implications does that have for the programs that I'm running in, right? I think it's really important to understand, and I knew this, and I was talking about it to the client, and he obviously knew like that I did have an understanding of the pieces, but this is also like a very unique time. It was when local services ads had come into the market for roofers, okay? And This is a huge disruption, and I think people don't really think about how disruptive of a change that is when Google changes how the search results page is entirely, right?
Totally.
Previously, I had a way and I could do it by getting to the top of Google search results page, right? So like a lot of the success I had was manual bidding and making sure that I did it right, where I could maximize budgets and get up to that top spot, right? So when local services ads come in and it kind of changes the landscape, it's a turbulent time and results fluctuate, right? And if you're not on top of that, if you don't see that coming and you're not allocating budget correctly, results are going to drop for a client. And that's what happened here, right? And so I'm telling him, hey guy, like, I hear you. Results dropped. This is what I'm doing. This is why I think that they've dropped, is because LSAs have come into the picture. These are the things I think that we need to do to get results back up. But it's also very interesting in digital marketing is, as a digital marketer and as a client, like I can also see from their perspective, it's like I'm blaming things on something, right? Like I'm going, hey, the reason is because this new thing came in and like that's why results dropped. But it seems like I'm like deferring blame towards the change, not like I'm like, and it is that, but like that is the reason. Do you know what I mean? But like it's hard to see that from a client's perspective. It's like I'm pushing.
So when you started at the same time, there's this Google algorithm change, which made the results drop. So as a result, you turn into the fall guy.
Right. Right. So it was a really difficult spot for me to be in. I really ended up not wanting to go to these meetings, right? Because I couldn't, we were making changes in real time. We were trying to get all of the office locations up on local services ads, but I'm behind the ball, right? I'm in transition. There's a change to the ecosphere. I'm trying to tread water here, and I'm driving to these meetings and kind of just getting berated at these meetings. And so I ended up really not wanting to go to these meetings because, again, I'm fighting against the current here. I'm trying to keep up results, but I'm not getting to them to the level that they want. And I'm still going. I'm still going to the meetings. I'm driving. I'm taking the punches that are coming at me. But again, I'm trying to explain what's going on and how we can change and why results aren't there. But again, it always seems like I'm deferring blame. And I think this is a big thing in digital marketing, is because, there's a lot that we can control, but there's a lot that we can't control. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot that we're at the mercy of Google's algorithm changes.
And 2 points on that. First, as much as we're at the mercy of it, we always can adjust to the changes. But that always takes time. Like Google makes an announcement and you can't tomorrow have the right perfect strategy on how to deal with it. There's always a couple months or so transition to figure, okay, this SEO technique no longer works. I need to do that SEO technique instead. So as a result, during those couple months, that will always be harder. And I think this also comes back to the point we're getting at earlier about the importance of having a high trust relationship with a client, because in this case, you were the third guy checking everything up, so the trust wasn't there. But in a more ideal universe, you could have previously spent a year building up trust, so that when the algorithm changes, he'll have more confidence that, okay, in a couple months, the SMB team will be able to figure it out.
100%. 100%. And I think I was figuring it out. We were getting there. Literally, yeah. I feel like 2 more months in, right, it would have all leveled out and stepped up from there. And he canceled. So again, like very painful lesson. I took all the punches. I was the punching bag. I was trying to explain. And I think, again, that's like a situation, a huge lesson, but like you need that process. You need to be able to explain. But again, like transitions are always a turbulent point. So it's kind of just like the perfect storm. I tried to weather it, and I think I was so close to breaking through, and they canceled.
By the way, to do a brainstorm for a second, there's a really interesting software development technique to solve the software developer version of this problem, i.e. someone's building software and they quit and no one else can read the code. A classic way to solve that is a strategy developed about 15 years ago called pair programming, which is have 2 people develop together. And then that not only makes it faster in that so the development is complex or there's a tough problem, they can figure it out together, but 2 people side by side building it together, when one of them quits after a year, at least there's the other guy that still knows the code. So I'm wondering if there's an interesting agency model where you could have 2 account managers for any account, because as account managers rotate in and out, they'll always be at least one person there who knows the background. That might be an interesting differentiator for some agency out there.
Oh, well, that's an awesome point. And that's kind of what we're trying to do right now.
Oh, I read your mind.
I think it's kind of a normal. So it's very tough, right? The perfect agency model. We're experimenting right now, breaking it out, right? So like technical client experience, somebody talking to the person frequently, also somebody doing the technical work behind the scenes. There's that model, right? We're experimenting with that, but also like a hybrid tech client experience person. So the client experience managers, that like the model that we're trying right now is that, right? But the client experience people are ex account managers. So like they also know the intimate knowledge of how it all works and can make the changes or talk to the technical person about how the client is experiencing it and how we can kind of merge that together. So that's like where we are right now.
I read your mind.
Which is cool. And it's got its pros and they all have their pros and cons, right? The original model we were working with was straight to technical account manager, but it was like the person who could talk to them and do everything behind the scenes. I think it's really rare to find those people.
Right.
We had like 4 of them to begin, and that's kind of like how we grew, was unicorns doing everything, right? But it's really hard to find those people. It is. It's like they're a rare breed. So we actually have done great at finding unicorns and then kind of merging them to where their talents go. Which is like the client experience people love just talking to people and talking like bigger term strategy, ideas, all that kind of stuff. And it's been pretty successful. But everything's got its challenges, right?
Agreed. Love it. This is your stories are short but sweet, but I like them.
Yeah, I got 2 more. So yeah, this is gonna be like short Short little ones.
It's like back.
I know you wanted to do one like long one. Go ahead. Sorry.
Up until you're about the 12th or so episode or 13th, and up until now, it's always been really one long deep dive. But it's like it reminds me of, remember back when people watched TVs when we were kids, you would have like a hour-long TV shows, but every once in a while they would just do an episode that's like 15 minutes of a few shorts. Like the Simpsons Halloween episodes. They would always have they would always have like 5-minute mini Halloween like episodes. So this is yours feels like a Halloween special.
There we go. Perfect.
Let's go for the next one.
All right. So let's dive into the next one. So these next ones are. I'm trying to decide which one to go and do first. All right, actually, they're both kind of similar, and they start with the wrong expectations.
Right.
Which is another thing I feel like is common in the industry, because back to my point where everybody says they can do it better than everybody else, right?
Yes, exactly.
I can get you this, I can get you 1 million clients, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. And that's just not the reality, right? Like a lot has to line up. Ideally the client needs to have enough of a business presence and kind of marketing materials for them to be successful. These two clients that I had were sold again by somebody in the very early days that we were working with who really didn't understand the ecosphere. He was a great salesperson, but did a really bad job of describing the realities of digital marketing. And so kind of had the wrong strategy from the outset on what we could do and kind of like how we did it. And so then I come in as the account manager.
That's a completely other universe of risk factors of having salesmen that aren't experts in the subject itself.
Right. Oh my God. Huge lesson, right? This guy was experienced in legal. He had like a legal background, but not digital marketing. Great dude, is doing really great in social media, but didn't understand the realities of Google or Google Ads necessarily.
Right. So
I'd come in, they had this crazy strategy with their geo-targeting and it was based on like good concepts, but like not how Google Ads works. So I come in and I'm the account manager and I'm like looking at the strategy and scratching my head and going, I don't think like this has zero chance of success, right? And so I have to start out as kind of like changing that strategy, right? Making it so that it can be successful and explaining how Google Ads works. And again, really bad starting point for a client relationship is explaining that sales kind of didn't do a good job in telling them like how it works, right? Sorry, what were you going to say?
No. I was going to emphasize that same point that ideally sales and the team that executes it need to work hand in hand, but that's hard to do in real life.
It is, right. So again, this is another one where it's a transition. And a lot of these stories are transitions because I come in when somebody else had been let go. Okay, so this client had been working with us for like 6 months on this strategy that had not gotten them anything, right? And legal is a weird, unique kind of market in that lawyers a lot of times like will hide, like they're very busy, right? They're small business owners. They're very busy. A lot of times things will just get lost in the mix where they'll sign up for something and not really check in on it. It's a big portion of the marketplace, right? So like, I'd say there's 50% in legal that are really zoomed into their marketing, really want to talk to an account manager or like a person, at least monthly, if not bi-weekly, want to be like really into the strategy and what's going on. There's another 50% that either like forgets about it, like they're just like, okay, I signed up for some marketing thing, I'm doing it, whatever. Or we're getting them results and like that's all they care about. They don't want to talk to you. They're getting results, they're happy. As long as they're not like yelling or like contacting you frequently, you know you're doing a good job, right?
Right.
Like, the conversions are coming in.
Most industries or most clients have that moderate amount in the middle, but it sounds like in your experience or in legal, it's like either really checked in or really checked out.
100%, and it depends on like where the firm is too, right?
Yeah.
Like if they're like if they have a marketing person, then that person will want to talk to you like a lot. If they don't, they fall more into that other 50%.
Right.
So this guy had been working with us for 6 months on a strategy that wasn't really getting him anywhere, but he wasn't like frequently in communication, wasn't like yelling, kind of was like, I'll see what happens kind of a thing. I come into the picture, introduce myself. Hey, I'm Anthony. I'm going to be, your marketing guy. And I start kind of like fixing the account. Okay. And this is a really, this story's going to veer into a couple different things because it touches kind of on other industries I've been in at other companies where and it's such a really important one that I've just zoomed in on is I come in and I fix the account, right? I see what's wrong and I go, okay, I'm going to fix this. And I start fixing the pieces in the background and it starts working, right? So it starts working. And this is also something I've experienced a lot of times is there's that 50% who never talks to you, right? They'll reach out and be very interested in Google Ads and how it works when they get something.
Interesting.
So like I'll come in, I'll go, all right, fuck. I gotta fix this crazy strategy that I know has no chance of success. So I start, pulling levers and clicking the parts to make it work. It starts working. They get intently interested in what are you doing? How did you do what you did? And they're not telling you like, hey, we signed up a client or like anything about their results, but I know that that's what it is because they're really interested in what's going on. So this is one of those cases, right? I start making it work. The attorney starts getting very interested in why it's working. And then the caveat there is they go, why was it not working for the 6 previous months that I've been working?
Ooh, now it's getting interesting.
Right. And so like, this is a really weird situation I've been in it previously, and I don't know how to solve this one, to be honest with you. And I love your input on this. I actually worked for an agency where we were doing car dealerships previously. Like it was, big car dealerships across the United States. I come in and did the same thing, right? Fixed the pieces, start making the accounts working really good. At the car agency place, I gotten these emails from 2 of the dealerships that were like, holy Jesus, suddenly we're seeing crazy amounts of traffic in walk-ins and we're selling so many more cars. And like, here's the questions is what the hell are you doing? And why was this not being done previously? So I was let go from that place because of this factor, right?
Because even though it was working, they were unhappy that it had not been working for so long beforehand.
Yes, 100%. And so like, I don't know how to solve that equation. I think it's a really tough one because it is like a trust factor, right? Like, again, it's all trust. I'm an employee at the place. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to riff on this for a moment with something I do. So this goes back to the point before about how SMT started developing processes because of that client. And my instinct is is there something I do in my process that I never consciously did it to prevent this problem, but I think it might prevent this problem, which is when I onboard a new client, as part of the onboarding, I emphasize in written docs and also verbally, hey, we're always changing our strategy, including we do like every 6-month reviews. And like sometimes they have just really big strategic change. It goes, testing, you never know if it works. So that way you basically prepare them for not just things not working, but for strategic changes, so that when it does happen, it's less of a shock to them.
Right. And so we are doing that more now, kind of tying in the longer strategic plays to it. But it is an interesting position to be in, right? Like taking over an account without those processes in play, changing the results, and then having to explain bad results, basically.
Yeah, it's what's powerful about this story is similar to the earlier one. It's not the results that clients are caring about. Like it's like when the results are getting better, they're angry over a previous employee did something else worse, because that lost the trust. So they ultimately didn't care about the better results.
Right.
Or didn't care enough.
Yeah. It is such a trust game. 100%. That is like really at the end of the day, it's all about like client trust and the perception of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I think the reason why this is tricky is because when you come in to a new account, you need to very quickly ramp up their trust without making the previous guy look bad. And that's a tough line to balance.
Right. It really is, but it's extremely important. And then, I had to like this case, got him really good results. He was very interested in what we were doing. And this is like another point of contention, right? Is trying to explain how Google Ads works to somebody who has no idea.
Is this the fourth story, or is this still the third guy?
This is still that story, but it ties into the other one.
Ties in.
Is like, again, it all goes back to like how the industry tells people what's going on, to like how it really operates, to trying to explain how it really operates, somebody who has that background of all of the other noise that they've been told, right? Like this AI program that we have is going to change everything, and like all the marketing that they've been told, and then like really how it works. And it is kind of complicated in like how Google Ads works. Would you agree with that?
I also think doing anything successfully is complicated.
Right. And then trying to like explain complex concepts to people who don't understand marketing is a challenge, right? So like I would explain why something was a certain way, but I couldn't get it through to them to understand. And the guy said, hey, if this keeps working, I'll be with you for life. Was very interested, wanted to know everything. I couldn't explain it to him or his marketing. His marketing person got more of it, but it was always then this back and forth kind of, I don't get it. Why is it this? Why is it that? I would explain it, but in kind of like very long explanations that wouldn't get through to them. They canceled it.
By the way, I've clients and other people I've had to work with in different contexts that were just communication was like water and oil. And if you tie this back to the SMB processes and also the having different, customer experience and account managers on each role, it might be an interesting approach where each account manager or each client experience manager has a very different communication style. So it might be interesting to match a client up with the client experience manager or account manager based on they just like speak the same language. So that will probably go a long way toward making it successful.
It's so funny. You're touching on all of these points that we're like coming to as an organization. And we are
predicting your organization's future.
Yeah, at these points, it's very fascinating. So like now we are labeling kind of what type of client is this, and you're right, it is very, very important. To state here, like we are talking about client horror stories, but I've had much more client great
amazing
than horror stories, and I'm talking about all the cancels, but lots of clients we've had like for many years.
By the way, I know you've had zillions of great clients, and this is like the 1% bad ones, but it reminds me of the opening lines to the novel Anna Karenina, and the opening line is every happy family is happy in the same way, but every unhappy family is unhappy in a different way. And this reminds me of clients. Like every happy client is in the same way, signed up, started getting lots of clients, started making lots of money. They're really happy, but it's the unhappy ones that have this subtle complexity to it.
Yeah. Oh, huge point. Yeah, really, really. So we've said, like, I know from my experience, the kind of clients, like at least in legal that we deal with, it is like 3 different buckets, right? It's there's that first bucket where it's the 50% who kind of just don't want to talk to you. They're happy with their results and they'll stay a client. If something changes, they'll reach out, but they're open, right? Like they're very open to, okay, this is working for me. If it stops working, I will reach out and say something, but they're actually the ones that I love the most, to be honest with you.
The lowest stress.
But there is another bucket that I like. I like the ones where, I'm doing a great job and they are only going to reach out if they're unhappy about the job that I'm doing. There's another bucket that I like, that are the ones that like to talk about big strategy. They're the ones that are really into tech stuff, right? So like they know all about Google Ads. They know how the ecosphere works. They're interested in like the new stuff. But they know, and they like, they're tech savvy. They're the other bucket that I like. They're like 1/3 of that other half that talks to you, right? But they're like not as, you don't have to check in with them as much. It's like once a month, maybe. They want to hear about new stuff. They're very open. They understand, and they're like understanding of the ebbs and flows of digital marketing, right? Because they know how it works. I really like those. Then there's another bucket, have no idea what the heck's going on. You can try and explain it to them. You have to drop it down, right? To like you got to metaphor it or explain it in a way that makes sense to them. They're hard though, because it's like a communication kind of gap. It's like, they're like the marketing people that you're dealing with who might work at a law firm, right? But then they're trying to explain it to the decision maker, right? So like you're that go-between. So it's really, I think, important to like make the concepts understandable enough that they can explain it to a third party. But then you don't know like what gets lost in that mix, right? When you're dealing with somebody who is dealing with another person. So like there is that gap. I would say that those. Go ahead.
I'm on that third bucket. One strategy I use that doesn't solve it because it's a complex group, but does help a little bit, is I often write emails and create documents that are meant to be forwarded. And like writing documents, knowing that actually the real decision maker is there and assuming this middleman will just like garble it all up. You put a document with the information explained in this clear way. That helps someone.
Oh, huge. So I did this with one of them. I broke it down. He was like a guy really into fishing. Okay. So I said, all right, how can I get this guy? So I wrote this email, a few paragraphs, right? It wasn't like crazy, like I generally gear towards in explaining all the technical weird things that I'm doing. So I said, where are we fishing and what's our bait? That's how I explained it to this guy. And I broke it down and said, okay, we're fishing on these kind of keywords. Or I said, these are the lakes that we're fishing in. And I compared that to different geos. I said, our bait is, these buckets of keywords, and also like these billboards, which we were running display ads for. And I found that to be like really effective. It's something I've kind of continued to go on and feed to client experience, is like, how can you break it down and explain it to somebody in a way where it makes sense, maybe towards one of their hobbies? How can we explain this where it's just super easy to get, but on point to what we're actually doing?
And as a totally tangential side note, what I like about that metaphor is you can keep on carrying it down. Like, it's often been difficult for me. Sorry, anyone who's not a PPC, ignore the next 30 seconds, you won't understand it. It's often been difficult for me to explain to people the difference between a keyword and a search query. Everyone thinks they're the same. But like, you can use an easy fishing metaphor. Okay, I'm going to go fishing for goldfish, but the search query is this one particular goldfish that I happen to catch.
I love that.
Okay.
It's perfect.
Anyhow, back.
So those are mostly my client horror stories. Again, I think what they all boil down to is like understanding and trust, right? Like explaining, gaining that trust, and being able to explain what you're doing in a way that anybody can understand it. And I think it comes with unique challenges. I personally love what I do. I learn from every client experience that I've had. Again, I have lots of very, very great client relationships. And I think the ones that I love the best are the ones where I can talk tech stuff and like get people excited with new stuff where they do understand everything. But that's kind of just selfish on my part, I think, because there is like just a level of understanding that is different across the board. I think it's just striking that balance. And I think it does tie back into what you were saying, and like matching up the right person with the right person. So again, like we're just at the beginning of that, but I think that can be extremely powerful. Is like, hey, what level is this person? Maybe you're in the C, and like, let's match them up with somebody who kind of speaks the language is huge.
Yeah, and agreed. And I'll wrap it all together with the following, what I think is a general theme of all your stories, and it's been unique among all of these interviews that I've done so far, is that they all share the lesson that sometimes you can't just make every client happy. Like, you're going to lose some battles. Like, because there are a couple of stories where you came in, and even though you did a great job coming into a messy situation, messiness caused by other people at your firm previously, or your firm is just too young to have established processes yet, like that's a good learning experience for you. But sometimes you just need to like let some houses burn down in order to learn how to become a really good firefighter. And as a result, you want to lose a little bit of sleep, because that makes you a better firefighter, but you can't lose too much sleep, because then you'll be so exhausted you won't be able to become a better firefighter.
100%. Yeah, I think it's that you learn with every experience. I think the pain from losing a client is, it hurts in the moment, right? Like I always, it's hard for me because I take them, or I used to take them very personally, right? Because like I always put all of myself into trying to do the absolute best job that I can do. And I do, like, I put a lot of thought into every client that we take on, like looking into everything. Like, I mean, when I was account managing, I would, after work, like on my couch, be looking up everything I could about that firm, right? Like what are their past news stories? Like, what's something I can grab? Because I've had great success in that, right? And like finding that one quote somewhere obscurely from 3 years ago that sets them apart from everybody else. And I think like then like when you really like put all of yourself into that and and it still ends up being a cancel because like timing doesn't match up or whatever it is. I used to take it really personally, but you're right. You're not going to be able to keep everyone. But I think that pain from losing them has always led to, especially at SMB, an improvement of some point on our processes so that it doesn't happen again, which is awesome, right? Like every loss helps us to grow, which is a great lesson.
Yeah, agreed 1,000%. And love the lessons, very insightful always. And thank you for showing up. Like let's do it again, and we can share some good stories.
100%.
Okay,
yeah.
Same here. And thank you for everyone who made it to the end.